The playground. I've never been able to forget that summer, even years later. The kind of memories that cling to you not because they're happy, but because they left a mark you can't wash off. Back then, before phones or social media had taken over, we didn't need screens or games to keep us entertained. We had the streets, the neighborhoods, the woods behind our houses, and at night, the park. It was small, nothing special to most people, but to me and my friends it was perfect. Hidden, secluded, ours. I was 13, that age where life felt endless and dangerous in the same breath, where riding bikes around until the streetlights flickered on was an everyday adventure. That night started like any other. My friends and I had just been at Tony's house after grabbing a pizza nearby. There were 6 of us originally, but 3 had already left by the time Tony's mom came outside, glaring at us to keep it down or go somewhere else. Rob, Tony, and I didn't care. We grabbed our bikes and rode down the street to the park. Even now I can remember the air, the way it felt cooler at night, brushing against my face as we pedaled, the tires humming on the asphalt, the distant hum of neighborhood houses. The park was about 5 minutes away, nestled at the corner of our block, a small baseball field, a few benches, a playground with a metal slide, and a swing set. Trees surrounded it on 3 sides, giving us a sense of privacy. Across the street, more woods, almost like the park had walls made of nature. We leaned our bikes against the edge of the playground and climbed up the structure to sit. It was elevated just enough to give a sense of secrecy, a throne of sorts from where we could watch the streetlights cast long shadows without being seen. We joked around for a bit, but that's when it started. Tony froze mid-sentence. "SHH, did you hear that?" I turned my head trying to catch something out of place. The playground was quiet save for the distant hum of cars and crickets. A footstep, a thump, I didn't know. But then another sound, thud, thud, coming from the playground itself. We looked around, heartbeats quickening. No one, nothing. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, creeping toward us, swallowing the edges of the playground. I called out, "Hello, anyone there?" My voice felt small, weak. Nothing answered. We sat back down, uneasy but trying to convince ourselves it was just an animal or a prank. But then it came. The voice. A child's voice, soft and timid. "Hello." It came from the metal slide, the kind that twisted down like a coiled snake. My stomach dropped. I froze. No child had entered the playground in the last half hour. There had been no footprints, no signs, just us. I felt my pulse in my ears as I whispered, "Is someone in there?" The voice answered again, "Hello." It was unmistakable, a small, boyish voice, almost like a whisper carried on the wind. I could see Rob and Tony exchanging looks, their faces pale in the dim streetlight. I don't know why, but instinctively I felt I had to check. Maybe a child was stuck, maybe something worse. I slid down the metal spiral expecting a kid to be around the corner, but at the bottom nothing, empty, silence. My eyes scanned the playground, the benches, the wood chips, the shadows between the trees. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. The sense of wrongness settled over me like a cold weight. Rob muttered, "Maybe it's just the wind." I wanted to argue, but even I couldn't explain it. Then it spoke again. "Catch me." I swear it wasn't playful, it wasn't friendly. It was commanding, distant, echoing inside my skull. Terror surged. We bolted, grabbed our bikes, and pedaled faster than I thought humanly possible back to my house. My legs burned. My chest heaved. The night felt alive, aware, watching. When we reached my backyard, trying to calm down, there was a knock at the gate. A woman's voice. "Hello, were you guys just at the park?" I froze. I knew no one, no family. My friends backed away. I peeked through the crack where the gate met the fence. She was middle-aged, grinning unnaturally wide, staring straight at me. I stumbled back. My voice barely worked. "No, we were." Her grin didn't falter. "Are you sure?" Tony answered for me. "No, we were." "Okay, thanks anyway," she said. But she didn't leave. She stayed, staring through the crack until we had no choice but to go inside. My parents would have been asleep, oblivious to the terror in our backyard. That night we stayed quiet, whispering, too scared to move, too scared to look outside. Even now, I can remember the sound of her smile, the way it seemed to stretch across the dark like the forest swallowing us. After that night, the park didn't feel safe. Not the playground, not the swings, not the shadows beneath the streetlights. I tried rationalizing. Maybe it was a kid who ran off and a worried mother looking for him, but we had gone home in minutes. No child could vanish so completely. And the woman, the grin, there is no explanation for that. I didn't sleep well for weeks. The playground haunted my dreams. The voice, the thud, the way it seemed to echo around the empty park. I tried to go back during the day. Everything looked normal. The slide gleamed in the sun, the benches stood empty. But I could feel it, watching, waiting, like the night had imprinted something on that place and it had never left. Even thinking about it now sends chills down my spine. I can't explain it. I don't think anyone could. It was just wrong. The watcher in the shadows. After that night at the park, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had attached itself to me. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was the beginning. The moment when fear became something that no explanation could touch. Sleep didn't come easily, and when it did, it came in fits and fragments, dreams filled with whispers and shadows sliding along the edges of my vision. Every creak of the house, every rustle outside, every fleeting movement of tree branches against the wind set my pulse racing. I tried to tell myself it was normal. I tried to rationalize that it was just a prank, maybe some older kids messing with us, but deep down I knew it was. Nothing about that night was normal. A few days later I had to go back to the park, but during the day, I told myself I needed to understand, to confront whatever my mind had imagined. The sunlight burned down on the playground equipment, glinting off the metal slides and swings, turning everything golden and familiar. I walked along the paths I had ridden my bike on so many times, scanning for clues, for anything that would explain the voice or the woman. Everything seemed ordinary, too ordinary. The small woods bordering the park swayed gently in the breeze, their shadows stretching across the grass. No sound of footsteps, no whispers, no eyes watching me. But that emptiness didn't calm me, it made my skin crawl. I wandered to the slide, crouching down to look inside the spiraling metal tube. Nothing. I touched the smooth metal, expecting maybe fingerprints or smudges, anything to tell me someone had been there. There was nothing, not a trace. My heart raced. I wanted to laugh at myself for being paranoid, for letting a simple park ruin my sense of safety, but my instincts screamed otherwise. I felt the presence before I even saw it. That subtle pressure, like the air itself, had weight. Weeks passed and I started noticing things I had never before. Shadows out of place, shapes just beyond the corner of my eye. At first I dismissed it, my mind was playing tricks. But then I began seeing the same figure repeatedly. At first in the distance, just a silhouette near the trees bordering the park. Always the same posture, slightly hunched, hood up, face hidden. My chest tightened when I caught sight of it, the same nausea from the night we ran. It was always there, lingering just out of reach, almost as if it were waiting for me to notice. One evening I decided to take a walk near the park. Not the playground, not the swings, just the street that ran along the edge of it. I wanted to see if I was being silly. I told myself it was probably a neighbor, a jogger, someone passing by. But as I approached the corner where the trees met the street, I froze. There it was, standing just beyond the tree line, barely visible, hood up, motionless, watching. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I felt the icy grip of fear tighten around my chest, and for the first time in my life, I realized fear could paralyze as effectively as chains. I forced myself to continue walking, slow, measured steps, pretending not to notice. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold my keys. When I reached the next streetlight, I risked a glance back. Gone. Just the trees, swaying gently, innocent and ordinary. I tried to convince myself I had imagined it, that my mind had taken the memory of the playground and turned it into a shadow. But then, the very next night, I heard it. A soft, childish giggle coming from the darkness of my backyard. My blood ran cold. I lived in a quiet neighborhood, but no one should have been there. The sound was deliberate, close, yet intangible. I bolted for the window, peering out, heart hammering. Nothing. The yard was empty, silent except for the distant hum of cars on the main street. I backed away from the glass, trying to rationalize wind, a stray animal, the pipe settling, but the giggle repeated. Clearer this time, distinct and impossibly close. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. Doors I knew I had locked were slightly ajar. Windows I had closed were unlocked. Small objects would shift position, seemingly moved by unseen hands. The playground incident was no longer isolated. It had spread into my home. The sense of being watched, pursued, never letting me forget that night, became suffocating. I stopped sleeping on the top floor, preferring the living room where I could see every entrance. I left lights on. Every sound became amplified. The click of a neighbor's door, the creak of a tree branch, even the settling of my own floorboards. Then one night the voice returned, not from the slide, not from the shadows, from inside the house, whispering from the hallway, soft, deliberate. Hello, catch me. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The voice was unmistakable, that same small, boyish tone, but there was no child here. I checked every room, every closet, under the beds, inside the bathroom cabinets. Nothing. Silence. But I felt it. Something had been there, had watched me move through my own home, and now lingered just beyond my perception. I couldn't tell anyone. Friends laughed it off when I tried to explain the playground. My parents thought I was exaggerating. The police? What proof could I offer? No footprints, no fingerprints, no recordings, just memory and fear. And the fear was growing. Days later, I decided to confront it. I couldn't live under constant paranoia. I returned to the park during the day, walking through the playground slowly, touching the slide, the swings, the benches, trying to feel grounded. As I approached the swing set, I noticed something unusual. Small footprints in the dirt, too small for any of us to have made, and they didn't belong to any child from the neighborhood. They led toward the slide, stopping abruptly at the bottom. I knelt down, heart hammering, tracing them with my fingers. They disappeared into the wood chips, as if the ground itself had swallowed them. I backed away, nausea rising, and then I heard it again. Not the giggle this time, but a whispering voice, soft and teasing, curling around my ears. Hello, I see you. I spun around. No one, nothing, just the trees swaying, sunlight streaming down, but it was real. It had to be. My mind was no longer playing tricks, I knew that. The feeling of eyes on me, the deliberate presence, couldn't be imagined. I ran home, ignoring every rational thought. At night I began leaving lights on in the house, but the whispers persisted. Sometimes I would hear them just beyond my bedroom door. Sometimes faintly from the hallway. Every sound, a thump, a creak, a distant laugh, felt like it was meant for me. Always me, always watching. And then one evening, as I tried to distract myself with a movie, I saw movement from the corner of my living room. Just for a second, a shadow flickered. I froze. The air felt thick, heavy, almost viscous, pressing against my skin. The sense of presence was overwhelming. Something had crossed the line from the playground into my life, following me, stalking me, testing me. I realized with a cold clarity that the playground was only the beginning. The slide, the thud, the voice, the woman at the gate, they were all pieces of a puzzle I could not solve. And whatever was behind it wasn't done. It never would be. Even now, months later, I avoid the park entirely. I avoid walking alone. I avoid looking at shadows. But sometimes in the dead quiet of my apartment, when everything is still, I hear the faintest whisper, "Catch me." And I know I am being watched, I am being hunted, I am never alone. The last chase. I thought I had escaped it. I thought the nightmares, the whispers, the shadows were confined to memory and imagination. I was wrong. The night had only been postponed. It started one evening in late August. The air was thick, heavy with humidity, the kind that makes even the smallest sound echo. I had tried to convince myself I was safe, staying inside, keeping the lights on, avoiding the park entirely. But something drew me outside, a restlessness, a need to feel normal. I grabbed my bike and decided to ride through the familiar streets, sticking to well-lit areas, avoiding any place that could hide a shadow. At first, nothing happened. The world looked ordinary, mundane even. Families sat on their porches, the distant hum of traffic, the faint laughter of children playing in their yards. I tried to relax, pedaling slowly, listening to the rhythmic hum of the tires on the asphalt. But the feeling returned, that subtle pressure at the edge of my awareness, like someone was walking just beyond the circle of streetlight. I froze at the corner near the park. The tree line was dark, impenetrable, and there it was, him or it. I couldn't see clearly, only a hooded figure standing in the shadows, still silent, watching, waiting. My chest tightened. Fear, pure and unrelenting, surged through me. I wanted to turn around, to run, to ride back home and lock myself inside forever. But curiosity, or perhaps some foolish streak of bravery, pushed me forward. I pedaled past slowly, pretending not to notice. The figure didn't move. But as I passed, I caught the faintest flicker, a shadow detaching itself from the trees, moving along the edge of the path. My pulse spiked. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light, that my mind was betraying me. But instinct screamed at me. This wasn't imagination. Over the next few nights, the encounters escalated. I began to see the figure everywhere, on empty streets, near the park, at the edge of my driveway. Sometimes I would glance away for just a moment, only to turn back and see the shadow closer, always observing, never stepping fully into the light. My sleep deteriorated. I barely ate. Every creak in the house, every rustle of wind through the trees felt like a signal, a reminder that I was being hunted. Then came the night that changed everything. I had stayed late at a friend's house, trying to ignore the growing dread. On my ride home, I took the usual street past the park, hoping the figure wouldn't appear. I had convinced myself I would scream, call for help, whatever it took. But as I approached the edge of the trees, I felt it before I saw it. The air thickened, the darkness pressed closer, and a chill ran down my spine. There in the shadows, a small figure emerged. At first I thought it was a child, then my stomach dropped. The slide incident flashed in my mind, the voice, the whispering, the thud. Catch me. The figure was small, boyish in size, but wrong in ways I couldn't articulate. Limbs moved with unnatural precision, too smooth, too fast. It stepped into the dim light of a street lamp, and my eyes widened in horror. Its face, pale, expressionless, impossibly still, stared at me. The eyes were black, reflecting nothing but darkness. I froze. My mind screamed at me to flee, but my body refused. Then a voice, a child's voice, soft and terrifying, whispered directly into my mind, bypassing my ears entirely. Catch me. The figure darted into the park. My legs finally obeyed. I chased, my heart hammering so violently it felt like it might burst. My bike clattered along the sidewalk, tires squealing against the pavement, but I abandoned it, running through the grass, into the woods bordering the playground. The park had never seemed so alive, so hostile. Every shadow stretched toward me, every rustle in the leaves felt like a snare. I could hear footsteps, but they weren't mine. They matched mine, mimicking, echoing, teasing. The figure led me through the playground, weaving between swings and slides, a dance of terror I couldn't escape. I reached the slide. The metal glinted in the moonlight, spiraling downward like the mouth of some monstrous tunnel. The figure disappeared into it. I followed, sliding down, expecting to see the child at the bottom. But of course, there was nothing. Empty. Just the cold metal pressing against my palms. I scrambled to my feet, chest burning, and that's when I saw her, the woman from the gate, standing in the shadows near the edge of the playground. The wide, unnatural grin. Her eyes fixed on me, unblinking, and my stomach turned. She raised a hand, pointing toward the slide. That's when I realized it wasn't just her. Something in her presence made the air feel heavier, darker. The playground seemed to pulse with life, twisting, almost breathing around me. I wanted to scream, but my throat refused. Then the whispers multiplied. Not just one voice, but many, children, adults, voices I didn't recognize, all merging into a cacophony of sound. Catch me, Watch, follow, join us. Panic overtook me. I turned and ran blindly through the playground, through the trees, desperate for the safety of the streetlights. Branches clawed at my arms, roots tripped me, and the voices followed, surrounding me, teasing, mocking. I didn't know what was real anymore. Every sense screamed danger. I stumbled onto the street, gasping, seeing the familiar glow of my neighbor's porch lights. But even here I wasn't safe. Shadows moved at the edge of my vision, figures lurking just out of reach. The woman's grin flashed in my mind. The child's voice echoed. I ran faster than I thought possible, not stopping until I reached my apartment. I locked the door behind me, collapsed against it, shaking uncontrollably. My breath came in ragged gasps. I told myself it was over. I had escaped, but deep down I knew it was. The nightmares didn't stop. The whispers continued. The shadows waited. I couldn't walk near the park without feeling them, couldn't sleep without hearing footsteps outside my window, couldn't leave my apartment without glancing at every shadow, every tree, every street corner. Weeks later, I checked the playground from a distance. Empty, quiet, innocent in the sunlight, but I knew the truth. It was never gone, it was waiting, watching, patient, and I foolishly had made myself the target. Sometimes late at night I hear the faintest giggle from the woods, sometimes the softest whisper, "Catch me." And I know with cold certainty that if I step into that park again, it will be the last mistake I ever make. I don't go back, I don't even drive past it if I can help it. The memory is permanent, stitched into my mind like a scar. The voices, the shadows, the woman, the child, I will never forget them, and I will never ever feel safe again. Because some things aren't meant to be understood, some things aren't meant to be confronted, some things just wait, and when they choose you, there is no escape.